cases don't get any easier. I often say that the deceased can't speak, and we have to speak for them. And we have to represent the family that have lost this loved one. And but that's what motivates me is the living and the people that need to be spoken for.
I'm John Lorden. Welcome to Brain Scratch. That was Detective Kevin Ham with the Phoenix Police Department Homicide Unit talking about what working cases means to him. And I can certainly connect with him on many levels, especially with his care for families. I wish that we saw more homicide detectives that seem to have that kind of heart and tact that he does in regards to this case. But I wanted to start with him in that clip because originally when I started looking into today's case, I was wondering, where are all the articles from when this happened? This is a murder that occurred 4 years ago, and quite honestly, I can't find anything outside of media from this year about it. Now, Detective Ham has just been handed this case, I guess, recently. So I think that's why we're seeing some different movement, especially in terms of media being used to share information about this case. And police are being very direct. They need the public's help. This is one of those cases. Part of the reason why I was questioning if this case was handled properly, I mean, to be blunt about it, is because we're going to find that they have footage that pretty much tells the story. And we're not talking about terrible footage. We're talking about pretty high quality, like high def footage, in particular of a vehicle. And how do we get 4 years down the road without being able to find out who owns that vehicle and bring them in for questioning? So that was kind of weighing on my mind. Watching a press conference, they did a full press conference on this case. They mentioned an interesting point about Phoenix PD that we're going to touch on as well. Kind of brings up its own questions, but let's go ahead and get started. At good old Wikipedia, learning a little bit about Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix has over 1.6 million residents. So already we're getting some insight into why figuring out this vehicle might be tough. That is a lot of people, and it's a somewhat common vehicle, even though they've got it down to a few years in terms of the make and model. Phoenix is the county seat of Maricopa County in the Salt River Valley and Arizona Sun Corridor, with an area of over 517 square miles. This place is giant. It's the largest city by area in Arizona, and it's actually the 11th largest city by area in the United States. So definitely some challenges with this. Also, Phoenix is the cultural center of Arizona, and it's known for its hot desert climate. So the interesting fact that he mentioned about Phoenix is apparently they have an amazing homicide case clearance rate. And that's being confirmed here at ABC 15. Homicide case clearance rate more than 90% in 2023. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I mean, that's a rate that we've talked about several times over the years. We know the national rate has been dipping. I think probably when I got started doing this work, it was somewhere in like the 60% range. Now it's down to closer to 50%. How can an area have a rate this high? And initially my gut instinct was like, something's got to be going on with how they are, what they're considering cleared cases, or some kind of number hijinks. This rate is just too high. If they literally have, according to this, a 92% clearance rate, they need to be training every other police force in this country. I don't quite understand it, and unfortunately, I couldn't find information that was digging into it very deep, but here's at least what is being reported at ABC 15. Phoenix police say they have had a 92% clearance rate so far this year when it comes to homicide cases in the city. So now you're probably saying, well, John, they're just talking about 1 year. This has been a trend, apparently, that has been continuing at this point. And what's interesting is I found earlier articles that was like, yeah, Phoenix is striving to be 2% better than the national average on homicide clearance rates. And that was just from a number of years ago. So something has certainly changed, in particular within the past 6 years. It's stated right here. Phoenix PD has seen this dramatic increase over the past 6 years. In 2017, their homicide case clearance rate stood at nearly 58%. The nationwide clearance rate last year was only around 52%. So in terms of their old goal of being 2% better, they were definitely acing that. But how do you do that in such a period of time? I'm telling you, if this is legit, they need to get an analyst on it. And I don't know how that wouldn't be a matter important to every police station in this nation. Like, how are we not studying this and figuring this out? What do they say is doing the work? Hardworking detectives, technology, and social media, along with implementing new collaborations within the department, have helped. I'd be curious about that last one. Honestly, on the media front, with this case in particular, I didn't see any media that really tied to when it originally happened. And with the type of information that we're going to see they had, it makes you wonder, like, why sit on that information for 4 years and not kick it out? But let's learn a little bit more about the victim here. This is Alisha Marie Hale. Alisha was born on February 15th, 1987 in Phoenix to Melissa Smith and the late David Hale. Alisha was raised by Dale Scott, the best dad any child could ask for. Alisha loved her family, music, and dancing. She was a licensed phlebotomist. She loved with all her heart. Alisha will always be loved and remembered for her passion for life and unconditional love she had for family. She is survived by her mom, Missy, dad, Dale, 5 children, 3 sisters, and a brother. And this, I've run into a few cases that have a feature that this case has, and that is we just learned all that we're going to be able to learn about Alisha's personal life from that obituary. There is no information about her personal life that I could find anywhere. If you guys could find something, please drop it in the comments down below. I am concerned when I run into cases of that nature that there might be some element that the family, for some reason, feels some shame for or about in terms of the person's lifestyle. I'm not saying that's the case here. I do not know. We have 2 possible clues in terms of something that might be going on. One of them is in that press conference, and this is literally a quote from the detective. She did suffer from some mental illnesses, and that's literally all he said. Another potential clue was a reporter asked him about her job. Like, well, did they notice that she was missing at work, or do we know what her schedule was for work? And the detective basically said, we don't know that information. Like, we'll get back to you, which is a very strange response for a case that's 4 years old. And that's leading me to believe that they didn't want to answer the question directly. And that, of course, makes me wonder, was she still working at that time? Was there something else going on in her life? And I'll just call it out because we've looked at enough of these cases to know sometimes families are going to pull back when it comes to any type of drug use. And in particular, they're going to pull back if it comes to the fact that the victim was performing as a sex worker in any way. Once again, there is nothing to indicate that that's what's going on here. But and I'm pretty confident that some family member is going to be watching this. I do think if this was happening within my family, we would be having a conversation about getting the information out that could be helpful to the case. And sometimes you need to fire up social circles that are different from your own. Sometimes you need to talk about those things so that people in those lifestyles go, oh, did you hear about that person that's like me? And then they talk about it to other people. And I know it is a double-edged sword, especially with how social media is nowadays. Putting out that type of information, you are going to get people that talk badly about your deceased loved one. It's the unfortunate truth. On the flip side of that, if you look deeply enough at the messages, you will also see compassion, warmth, care. That also comes with it. But of course, what we're really looking for is the tip. We're looking for the information. And that's just another bit of a downside to Alisha's story, is that we don't know enough about her as a person for that to really resonate with others and for them to feel moved to, hey, I've got to help this case because Alisha's like me. And sometimes that is some of those lifestyle choices that not all of us agree with. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out in advance. The one other potential clue that I found actually came from that video that we started this episode with, actually at the press conference they had. And that is that there's one person that is coming into the conversation here and replying to everybody. and her name is Natalie Fitzgerald. And Natalie Fitzgerald, the first comment here says, "Thank you to the detective for giving my mommy's story another chance." I am not 100% sure if Natalie is actually her daughter. I don't have any big reason to doubt it outside of there's one comment where it looks like there was some misunderstanding about Natalie saying that the man that we're looking for basically has been found. And then a bunch of people kind of jumped in. What are you talking about? We can't find any updates. I didn't see any updates on it. She seemed to say that it was a miscommunication. They weren't understanding. And I can confirm that Alisha definitely does have a daughter named Natalie, which you could see on her obituary. So right in here. The other thing, and why I'm trying to be super, super cautious about this, is I have no idea how old Natalie would be. Alisha was only 34 at the time that she passed away. So Natalie could very well be a young child or possibly a teenager. So Natalie, if you are watching this, I wish there was some way for me to give you a big virtual hug, but know that the messages that you left on that YouTube page are a very big part of the reason why we're here talking about this now. And I hope that this video also helps your mommy's case. Let's jump into the news articles and see what we can learn about the actual details with this case. Phoenix police have released new information regarding the 2021 murder of Alisha Hale Belote. Now, that's another kind of interesting point here. Most of the articles just call her Alisha Hale. We saw that over on her obituary, it was just Alisha Hale. Belote is her married name, but I don't know if they were still together at the time, if they had separated, if she was legally divorced. I'm not sure, but I did see confirmation that Belote is essentially her married name. She was 34 years old at the time. Her body was left in a desert area near Interstate 10 and Baseline Road. She was shot and killed. Now, this article says on June 3rd, 2021. We're going to find out that that's not quite right. That's when police discovered her. Quote, "Come forward, tell us your story. We know what happened, but we don't know why it happened. And I think that's an important question," said Detective Kevin Ham. Over at Fox 10, we get a little more detail and firming up of the kind of order of events here. Phoenix police officials seek help. They're asking for the public's help as they work to track down the person who allegedly shot and killed a woman in broad daylight. Yeah, on the morning of June 2nd at around 11:30 a.m., a silver Dodge Ram floors it on the dirt canal road off I-10 and Baseline. Moments later, two figures get out, a male driver and a passenger that police say is Hale. A day later, police find Hale's body. So they found her on June 3rd, 2021 at 9 a.m. in the morning. When they went and checked the local cameras, they saw that the timeline they were working with was actually from the day before, June 2nd at around 11:30 a.m. It's been over 4 years since Hale died, and investigators need new leads. We believe that the suspect knew Hale, Sergeant Bauer said. So the other thing, as if the broad daylight angle wouldn't blow your mind enough, is where this is happening. Like literally, they're pretty much within eyeshot of a freeway system, another road that runs in front of that. This area up here is where the murder occurred. As a matter of fact, we're going to be able to see in some pictures and footage that we're going to look at later. This is kind of a key indicator, this sign here. It's just an advertising sign, but this is between this and this parking lot. That's kind of what gave me the bearings for understanding where the vehicle parked and where they walked off to. I believe that essentially the vehicle parked somewhere around here and they went walking. I think there might be a little wall that's over here. There's kind of a wall on one side and some brush on the other, but this is not like some, deep forested area where you could hide a body and someone isn't going to find it for years. Totally makes sense that she was found literally within 24 hours the following day. And look at all these businesses around here, which is probably the biggest question that I wish I had an answer to, but I don't. We're going to find that they have tracking in terms of video of this vehicle. I am looking at nothing but businesses in every direction that you can go out here. I don't know how they weren't able to track that vehicle further to possibly at least get a shot of the license plate or possibly figure out the direction that it was going in. Now, admittedly, sure, maybe you could track it in the immediate area, but if it goes off into some neighborhoods like we see all around this area, you're probably going to lose the tracking at that point. You go ask for people's doorbell video, and some of them have it, some of them don't. Sometimes it's erased. But it's just curious because this is happening in this tiny little patch of desert that is surrounded by businesses, that is surrounded by homes. Um, yeah, it's got to be frustrating for law enforcement, because I'm sure they looked at all those angles, and they probably have a bunch of other footage they've looked at, and for some reason they're just not able to use it to make a solid determination on that vehicle. Hale was found wearing a black and white dress, which her family told police was not something that she would normally wear. That's interesting. And outside of the fact that it's not something she would normally wear, apparently it's a pretty thick dress, and we're talking Arizona heat in the afternoon. It's kind of a strange mix there. And interesting that her family's noting this isn't something she would normally wear. Officers did not immediately notice any signs of trauma, but later saw that she had been shot. The way that story unfolded in the press conference, I was a little concerned, because effectively they're trying to say that when police showed up, they saw her body. She's laying down. She's face up. She's wearing this dress. They didn't see any wound on the front at all. It's not until they moved her that I believe that they saw that she had actually been shot. So there's some possibility that, like, if they come across her, and I mean, if she was gone for a day, I have to imagine they didn't try life-saving efforts, but there's some possibility that they started processing her. They even say they thought that she overdosed. Maybe they had moved her and then realized it was a crime scene and had already kind of damaged the crime scene in some way, or possibly lost some evidence in some way, or something along those lines. And I'm only bringing that up as a possibility because I'm so curious. Why was there no coverage about this at the time? Why did no one report on this? And the trend that I'm seeing, even for reporting on it now, is literally just police did a press release, and a bunch of articles were kicked up that are just talking about that press release. Police could have done a press release 4 years ago. Same thing would have happened. There would have been a bunch of articles. So it seems like it didn't happen for some reason, and I'm not exactly sure why. Also worth noting, she's found in a part of Phoenix that she really is not known to go to, does not hang out in, and we're talking about, 500 square miles. That is a large city. It didn't make sense to her family that she would be found in essentially South Phoenix. She's from the Sunny Slope area, which is actually north of that. So officers were able to obtain a video from the day before the murder that showed Hale arrive in the area in a silver truck, which police now say is either a 2005 or 2006 Dodge Ram 1500 or 2500. Now, some other details about that truck. It's a four-door, and unfortunately, everything else on it is stock. So there's no real distinctive characteristics about it, except they mention a small dent, but I haven't seen a good photo or clarification on where that dent is. So they're just saying they do notice that there's a small dent that they're able to recognize. And it does have a tow hitch, which is something that was probably added aftermarket. They did say the windows also looked tinted. Possibility that someone might have done a tint job on that might be able to recognize the vehicle. And they wanted to remind the public that even if you think you know this vehicle or who has it now, keep in mind that it could have been sold. It might not be the same person that owned it back at that time, but they are trying to track that vehicle down. The video shows Hale and an unidentified man both exit the truck. They have a short conversation before walking out of the camera's view. About 2 minutes later, the man gets back into the truck and drives away. That's a little simplified. We're going to watch kind of a sped up version of the video, and I'll explain. There's an additional step that happens in there. There is no hard evidence that shows that Hale knew her killer, the department said. And of course, that raises an interesting question. And that's part of the reason why I want to watch the footage with you guys. I've already watched the full version that's been released, which is about 10 minutes long. And essentially, there is tons of opportunity. Like if she had been abducted somewhere, there's a few distinct opportunities that I see that she could have made a run for it. And literally, she would just have to run to a street that looks like it's maybe 20, 30 feet away, and there's constant traffic happening there. Like if she was in some immediate danger, she could have had help within a matter of seconds. It doesn't look like that's what's happening in the video. It looks like he gets out of the driver's side, he kind of opens the back door, the door that's behind his, but she's sitting over on the passenger side. There's some conversation that happens there for a while. It looks like he goes and walks off in the direction that they eventually go walking off in together, like he's checking something, and then he comes back. And then he goes over on the passenger side, and there's a long conversation, I would say like 3.5 minutes, that happens over there. And then eventually they walk off together. About 2.5 minutes later, he comes walking back and she's not with him, and that's it. Also worth noting, the detective said that the department is sending certain pieces of evidence back through the crime lab to be retested, but that alone won't solve this case. Curious what would be retested only 4 years later. It's not like we've had a big jump in technology that I'm aware of. Like, specifically, I guess the only thing I really have heard of in the last few years has been DNA analysis off case shells has kind of progressed. I'm not sure why they would be retesting so quickly. Quote, somebody knows this vehicle. We're seeking the public's help and we need somebody to come forward. Alisha deserves the justice. Her family deserves the justice, and we're going to do whatever we can, said Phoenix Police Sergeant Brian Bauer. So in terms of the truck, these are kind of what it looks like. This one right in the middle here, that's the 4-door model. That's actually a fairly close match for it. But thankfully, we're going to get to see it for ourselves as we watch the video. So let's go ahead. This is a 2-minute and 47-second version of the video. It's sped up in a few places. But here we can see the vehicle kind of entering, and it's driving on kind of a dirt path that runs along the canal. Just to show you the map here, back on the map. So this camera, I believe, is from up in this area. That's why we're seeing a piece of the parking lot that's there. And that vehicle is essentially driving around on this dirt road that is right around the canal here. Let's get back to it. There's no audio, unfortunately, which, man, I really wish they had, because that would certainly firm up the timeline. I mean, we know she doesn't come walking back with him from this area and her body's found there. So, the time of the actual gunshot is down to within a few minutes. But if there was just some type of audio on this, they would have a very precise time on that. And you can see what I'm talking about here. Look at the traffic that's passing. Literally, it's 20, 30 feet away. I mean, if she needed to make a run for it, ran out into the middle of the road to stop and get help from someone, she could have done that in seconds. So now we see the door open. Driver is getting out. We're assuming this is him. The only thing that we have about him is they're trying to estimate his height based on the vehicle, and they're saying he's between, I think, 5'6" or 5'8" and 6 feet tall. But this I'm curious about. He kind of opens the door behind his, and then it looks like he's doing something back there, but they could just be talking. He closes up the doors. Now, unfortunately, they kind of sped through it. He closes up the doors, and then he goes and he walks off. At this point, she is completely alone. So even if you're thinking about a situation of like, John, what if he had a gun on her? She's not going to go running off in that time period. He literally leaves the scene, and she's got just a matter of a few seconds before she's at help of some kind. So it seems like she's here of her own volition. There's no indicator, unless I guess there's a possibility that she could be restrained in the vehicle in some way, or kind of like, handcuffed to the door or something along those lines. Because this moment is, this is where she could have made a break if she wanted to. So yeah, he walks off. He's actually gone for a couple minutes. He comes back, walks up to the passenger side, and then, like I said before, about 3 minutes passes. We then see, I believe, it's so hard for me to tell because these pixels, but that's the two of them. And I've seen, zoomed in versions on this. I'm zooming it in for you guys as well, but you can see that it's just, I mean, it looks like Minecraft. It's just blocky pixels. Another few minutes passes, And then we will see that only one person is coming out of that area, and he gets in the vehicle and goes driving off and drives off fairly calmly. In the full video, you can see that when he first showed up, he's kind of like really hitting the dirt pretty hard. He's kind of spinning his wheels a little bit and stuff. When he leaves, he's driving like perfect model citizen, like he's driving very, very slow as he's leaving this scene. So, but that's not the only footage they got. They did have, I think, from a couple of businesses, some other footage, better shots of the vehicle, like some really, really solid, clean shots. It's just the challenge is there's no identifying marks. The vehicle is pretty much stock, and you're talking about an area that has over 1 million people living there. It's not going to be easy to find that vehicle. I get it. Would it have been easier if this information was circulated 4 years ago is certainly a question that's on my mind. The video shows Hale in a black and white striped dress, which is what she was wearing when investigators found her body the next day. Bauer said this individual decided to do this heinous act in the middle of public, not caring about the cars or traffic or any other witnesses in the area. We believe that the suspect knew Alisha. We're hoping that there's some people out there in our community that might have more information about that specific relationship. That's an interesting call too, because we're talking about all these different conditions. I don't think I mentioned it, but the person that is saying that they're her daughter on those YouTube comments does mention possibly some drug use. If that is accurate, there could be a situation where we're talking about this is a dealer of hers. Maybe she owed them money, something along those lines. Law enforcement is looking to understand that relationship. And I think if they get that piece, that's just going to help them track that person down and really get to the answers that they're looking for. Especially this big question, the motive for the murder remains uncertain. Why was this mother killed? She's a mother, she's a daughter, she's a sister. From all the things that I've learned so far in this investigation, she was a kind person, Ham said. So this is the vehicle. Please share this with any friends, family, any acquaintances that you have in the Phoenix area. There's a lot of people out there. We need people to be aware of this. This information was all released a few months ago, and there are no updates on this case since then. So it seems like their attempt to kind of get the public awareness raised on this didn't necessarily pay off yet. Maybe you can be a part of that. Maybe you'll be the thing that makes the difference in this case for this family that helps them find justice. Of course, with some of these situations, you might be worried about submitting information that you have. You can do it completely anonymously thanks to Silent Witness. Arizona's Silent Witness program allows people to send in tips and share information about crimes happening within their local communities. The program shares unsolved felony case information in multiple ways, including TV, radio, and social media. Anyone who has information on a crime or recognizes a suspect described by the program is asked to call 480-948-6377. Of course, I'll have that information down below. Or you can also go to the program's website, which is silentwitness.org. I'll have a link to that down below as well. You can also download the Silent Witness app to provide a tip through that. The identity of anyone who submits a tip is kept anonymous. The calls are answered 24/7 by a live person, and tips are accepted at all times. The tips are then sent to the detectives in charge of the specific case, and individuals who submit tips that lead to an arrest or an indictment can get a reward. In this particular case, I think they've upped it to $2,000, but for it looks like the minimum for any case is actually $1,000. So I know it's tough when we don't have the emotional connectivity of understanding Alisha very well as a person. What we do have is understanding that she's a family member. There are multiple children that don't have their mother anymore because of what happened 4 years ago on that dirt patch. And there's a person that is getting away with it, that is walking around free today. And maybe you can be part of the team that helps bring that person in. Of course, not everyone has friends in the Phoenix area, but you can still help. Hit the upvote, even hitting the downvote, leaving a comment. All of that engagement tells YouTube this video needs to be seen by more people, and that's what we're trying to do. We want to get this video in front of the person that has the information that can help Alisha's family find justice. So we really appreciate you guys doing all of that stuff as well. Of course, the biggest thank you goes to our supporters here at Lord and Arts. You might notice we don't run commercials during these presentations. We can only do that because of our amazing supporters. If you'd like to become one, visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee. We really appreciate it as we try to help so many families in need year after year, and we can only do that together as a team. So thank you for being a big part of that team. Before we end today's video, just a quick reminder, we are off next week for the holidays, but we will return the week after that. And I hope that you guys get to spend time with your families and maybe think about some of these other families that are missing a loved one on that holiday. Take care, everyone. I'll see you again soon here on the Lord and Arts channel.